Dr. Patricia Newton is the author of Post-Traumatic Slave Disorder, and she is the Chief Executive Officer, Medical Director, and past President of the Black Psychiatrists of America, also known as the BPA. She currently serves on its Council of Elders. Dr. Newton is a past distinguished Andrea Delgado, MD, Memorial Lecturer for the BPA, and has been the recipient of both BPA's Isaac Slaughter, MD Memorial Award for Outstanding Leadership and the Lord Elam MD Memorial Award for Lifetime Achievement. She is also the conference coordinator for the BPA, serving in that capacity for well over a decade. Dr. Newton is a psychiatrist and behavioral scientist specialist who is currently serving as the president and medical director of the Newton and Associates and president of Newton Thought, Inc. It is my pleasure. Please stand to your feet and let's give a rousing round of applause to welcome Dr. Patricia Newton.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here. And I'm glad that you all were not afraid of coronavirus to come to the house of the Lord. I mean, I think it's important that we understand that we are in perilous times, but we also have a combination of natural factors and bio-warfare. I think we need to all be real clear what is going on in this America. And this is a test run. I want you to know this is a test run of things to come. In October of 2019, there was a virus simulation done by key health professionals. Only 130 were invited. Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, where I am, was one of the key players involved in that. It was in New York, and this entire virus simulation was created and done with exactly what we're seeing. And I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, you know. But I think it's important that we don't take it lightly. But it's important that we understand that this is a trial run, ladies and gentlemen. A trial run. And I see this little gong up here beside me, so I think that means that I have a time limit. I know how Reverend Dr. Reggie is. I don't want them hitting that little thing. Because, you know, that happens. That happens a lot. I'm honored again to be here. Truman Transformations is like my Atlanta home. They keep inviting me back, so I must be doing something. And if not, I guess he'll tell me. Reverend Reggie always gives me tough assignments. And then he said, oh, you know, this month, our topic is divine strength. And our spiritual luminary is Rosa Parks. And you talk about the biology of it. I said, what? The neurobiology of it. I said, you always ask me to talk about the brain. Well, I guess that's because that's what I know. And so I'm honored to be able to do that. And in this context, you know, I thought that I remember hearing a phrase by Yikwe Arma, who is a writer of 2,000 Diseases, if those of you are familiar with him. He's a Ghanaian writer who currently lives in Senegal. And he wrote a piece that said, a mind that is attacked and conquered is easily led away from the path of its own soul. Let me repeat that. A mind that is attacked and conquered is easily led away from the path of its own soul. And so when we talk about the path of our own soul, we're talking about the divine strength that exists within us. And when we talk about Rosa Parks, you know, Rosa Parks was a little old lady, minding her own business, tired when she got off work, and had made a decision that she was not going to get up this day. She was sick and tired of being what? Sick and tired. And so the strength, you know, here's a lady that's, you know, minding her business. So the strength to say no and the strength to take that stand was not something she planned. It was something that manifested itself. And she made a statement, God has always given me the strength to say what is right. Okay. And so, you know, when we talk about strength, and I'm going to get into the biology, because you know you can't leave here without me giving you some neurology too, right? I mean, you got to walk away here from here more informed than you were when you came, less ignorant than you were manifesting, and more righteous than you ever were. Okay. And so when we talk about strength, there are two kinds of spiritual strength, and we need to understand there's human strength and there's divine strength. Now, when we talk about human strength, we all know it. We all know hero stories. We all grew up on comic books. We all grew up learning about the hero, the one that may have started out less than, but then ultimately triumphed. And there's a plethora of stories that we can cite, that we remember from our childhood about the hero and the hero's journey. And we often are transformed and transfixed on the hero's journey and fantasize and visualize about that, and might even being something that we could be a part of, that we could expand and explore and triumph over evil. We don't hear much about, though, divine strength. But we use it a lot. We often say, oh, Lord, give me strength. How many of y'all have said that? Because I think nearly everybody in this room at some point in their life have called on God for strength. That's right. To make a way out of no way. To when things seem like they are just not going to happen, not going to manifest themselves. And Paul said in 2 Peter verses 1 to 3, God's divine power has given us everything we need for life and goodness. It means it gives us strength. And so normally what we talk about in dealing with strength is we're referring to physical might, the ability to overcome obstacles. But when we talk about divine strength, what we talk about is the fact that it's not that God gives us strength. It's that God becomes our strength. The Creator becomes the strength with which we need to manifest. Not giving us anything but stuff that we already have. Okay. That we were already given in divine order when we were created. But we're not educated to utilize it. Western education is devoid of spirituality. Am I right or wrong? Oh, you're right. Western education teaches you to deal with just facts. Well, we know in African-centric logic that some things defy facts. That's right. Yes. And some things you can't necessarily pinpoint, but we know that they manifest themselves. Right. It's just like when you have a relative that makes a transition into the other plane. Many of you are close, if it's a father or a mother or a spouse, you have visitation. Am I right or wrong? Yes. Right. Yes. You know that energy comes back to work with you, to guide you, to lead you, that ancestral energy. Am I right or wrong? Yes. That is divine spirit, because our ancestors taught us the strength is that we never die. And in science, they say energy is not destroyed, it's just transformed, right? So the science is saying it, but they don't manifest it, and they don't keep constantly reporting it and stressing it, so you grow up thinking that these two things are indifferent. But what we have to understand is that the divine energy within us, it augments us. When we have God working through us, the Spirit working through us, the Creator working through us, I'm going to get to what happens in the brain. Yeah. But I want to talk about the fact that we become augmented humans. Yeah. We become augmented. You know what I mean by that? Uh-huh. Better than, higher than, greater than what we are, because you've been in situations where you didn't know what you were going to do. And call on that strength, that inner strength, and something manifests itself. It may not be the totality of what you need, but something will manifest itself, and you overcome that obstacle. You go, thank you, Jesus, or thank you, God, or thank you, whomever you call. Okay? And so what happens is that obviously something is transpiring. Something is transforming. Some strength takes over you. The creative energy takes over you. And when it leaves you, you are stronger. You are better than. You are higher than. You are what? Transformed. And so you become a stronger human. And in that strength is your divinity. And in that strength, that way out of no way becomes a reality. Wow. So when we cry out to the Creator to help us and to give us strength, we don't immediately always feel some kind of surge of energy or somebody pushing you along, although some people have. But what we know, that a miracle comes. For some manifestation, some reason, a miracle at the end of the day will manifest itself, even though we did not even recognize that it was coming. And so what we see in operation here is a combination of human strength and divine strength, working together in consortium to overpower and overcome the obstacles. And what does that mean? That means that it is already within you. That when the Creator, who makes no mistakes, divinely created you, he gave you or she gave you that power. But because you're not educated to use it, it never gets its chance to manifest itself. And so you run around in confusion, and you run around ambivalent, and you run around in self-doubt, and you run around dealing with the massive ignorance and bigotry and racism and sexism and ignorantism. That is so profound, and then you end up jumping like a puppet to the strings that get twitched, just like we're doing now around coronavirus. We're jumping like puppets, and it's all part of a simulation to see how far we can push that lever. And if anybody disagrees with me, we can discuss it afterwards. But don't let your ignorance. I'm gonna leave that alone. So some things that could have never been done will manifest themselves. And so that Rosa Parks tired lady decided that I'm not getting up today. Today I am going to use the power and the mind. And let me quote what she said. I have learned over the years that when one's mind is made up, this diminishes fear. Knowing what must be done does away with this fear. End quote. So in other words, having that determination, having that will, making that commitment to yourself, to the divinity within yourself. And so what happens when we consciously recognize the power that the divine within us, the power that the Creator has given us? And you say it, but you don't even understand what you say. You say, oh, I'm blessed and highly favored. You don't even know what you're saying. You learned it. It sounds good. It makes it feel like you're a powerful person when somebody calls on the phone, but you don't incorporate it into your being. If you're blessed and highly favored, manifest it. I ain't getting this. You got these words, but they don't mean nothing. So you got the strength. It's already been given to you by the Creator, but it's not used. And it's not used because of the miseducation in these Americas. And so when we talk about this whole issue, I have to bring in, I have to bring in the brain politics. And so in that process of talking about it, several years ago, actually 20 years ago, I wrote a book called The Ancient African Principle of Rightness. It's out of print, but I guess I better bring it back in print. And it looks at how you say do the right thing. You don't even know what that means. Do the right thing. I went back and looked at all the ancient systems, African systems, Asian systems, Western systems, Native American systems, and realized that they had something in common. They anatomically dissected right into 9 parts.
Okay. Okay.
You gotta, so get ready for this. You got a pencil and a piece of paper. I'm gonna bring the book back when I come, right? But let's talk about these 9 parts, because these 9 parts are inherent in the creative divinity of your strength. And so, what is the first thing that, in order to do the right thing, you got to intend to do right. The first one is right intention. And once you have a right intention, then and only then can you think right.
That's right.
You got to intend to do right before the thought will manifest itself.
That's right.
Okay? So then you think right. When you think right, then you can articulate. You can speak right. Right speech. And after you speak right, then and only then, because you have to manifest it, whether you speak it verbally out loud or speak it in your head, what happens is that then the effort starts to manifest itself. And let me tell you about that effort. When you are intending to carry forth an action, the brain, in its premotor areas of the brain, we'll get into that, lights up before the action even takes place. If I were to do a PET scan, I would see activity around the motor area, but not at the area where you actually are getting ready to do the action, but around it. In other words, I'm getting ready to recruit the energy from other parts of the brain to make me do this from effort to right action. So we got to intend to do right, we got to think right, we got to speak right, we have right effort, and then we have right action. Are y'all following me?
Yeah.
And then after that right action, then becomes my ability to relate right to you. If I'm thinking wrong, then what I'm doing with you is a sham. It's counterfeit. Are you with me?
Amen.
And you can feel it. When another person is lying to you, you may be in denial, but you can feel it.
Amen.
You feel it in your gut.
Amen.
You feel it right here, and you begin to say, something ain't right.
Right.
I don't know what this is, but this ain't right. And so from that right action and that right relationship, then and only then can you live right. So that's the 7th principle of right. And after living right, then it allows you to get what? Right understanding. And from right understanding comes the ultimate right wisdom. So our ancestors have taught us there's 9 anatomical parts to being right. So when you tell me do the right thing, I want to know which one you're talking about. Are you talking about the right intention, the right wisdom, the right living, or are you just talking? You know, most of us just talk. The Creator, unfortunately, gives human beings not only motivation, but also free will.
Well,
now, we don't do a lot with that free will. Some of us do some wrong and devilish things with that free will. But it's there because the will is there because it is important for the human organism to be able to act, to move. So when you see people who have been, and we know this data was done in Oxford, and research data was done, it shows that what happens with the brain is that if you have, say, Alzheimer's, or you have traumatic brain injury, or you have stroke, then you will often see people have what they look apathetic, they look sad. You notice? They look, and what we find is that those people, it takes a lot of energy for them to move to those levels of rightness. They don't have the energy. And so when we talk about brain motivation, what we see in people who have been traumatized, and you've heard me say this before, that trauma cuts off the connection to the frontal lobe of the brain. And the frontal lobe is what I call, if you remember, the CEO of the brain. It makes the rational decisions to keep you alive. So what we're talking about when you're traumatized, and by the way, I think I did a lecture here, didn't I, Reverend Dr. Reggie, on sexual trauma. Do you have those tapes available for the people? Yeah, y'all can get those tapes. Nobody hardly came to that lecture because when they start talking about sexual stuff in Atlanta, folks get scared. Human trafficking capital of the world of America, but y'all get scared. So you should get that tape. And while I'm on the subject, I want to remind you, I have some flyers back here. We do training for communities and organizations. It's called Seek Advocacy. It's sexual exploitation, abuse, and trafficking advocacy training, where we train communities and people on how to spot that. So I want to remind you of that while I'm on this subject. So what are we talking about is that when people are traumatized, as most black folk have been, and it's varying degrees, of course, that some of the drama queens and kings that you know in your lives are people whose traumatic events are such that the portion of the brain that we call I'll make it easy, ACC, the anterior cingulate cortex, anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC, that's all you need to remember, that area and something that's relative to that don't light up. They don't create that area that I was talking about where, you get ready to do the right effort and you see the brain light up before you take the action. That doesn't light up. What happens is another portion of the brain called the limbic system, where all your emotions and stuff are. That lights up. That's your drama kings and your drama queens. And it's all over the place with a lot of anxiety and confusion and ambivalence. And so when you are engaging in ambivalent thinking, can't make up your mind. Confused. Confusion is a state of being. It's not a state of being confused. It's a state, I've made a decision to not make a decision. You need to understand that you're making a decision not to decide. You may not be conscious of it. And just because you're not conscious of it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So you make that decision not to decide. And then you allow yourself to be confused because confusion offers you a kind of protection where I don't have to take responsibility for that decision. I can stay confused and it wasn't my fault. Are y'all with me?
Yeah.
And so you lose your strength and you lose your power in the context of that confusion because that portion of the brain that is empowered, that is divinely empowered to resolve conflict, cannot. So that portion of the brain that deals only with gut emotions and survival, that whole limbic system starts to go and fire like crazy. And you're just out there all over the place, creating confusion, havoc, even defeating yourself. And so what happens is that data shows that when you're confused or you've had brain damage, or traumatized to the degree that it's never been resolved, in order for you to move to your strength, to your divine strength, it takes more energy than it does when you're just sitting around calmly making a decision to make a choice to change. You would think it would be the reverse. You would think that it would be easier if you could come out of that confusion, but that's not what happens. What it shows is that the amount of energy that is required to get you to make a decision becomes triple-fold when you're traumatized. So you become exhausted. You're mentally exhausted. You see it a lot in athletics when athletes psych themselves out. They psych themselves out and they can't perform. They get so anxious and hyper because the portion of the brain that's required to make that decision is not what's activated. It's that limbic system again that's activated, and so it short circuits the connections. Are you all with me?
Yeah.
I know I'm trying to make it, attempting, not trying, to make this simple. Because I don't want it to be above anybody's head. I'm breaking it down as best I can. Because the connections then become diminished. And so what the Creator has done in making us, giving us divine strength and power, is allowed a portion of the brain to have these wonderful connections. This ACC and this portion of the cortex and something else called the SMA, and I'll just tell you what it is. It's supplemental motor area. Just SMA and ACC, that's all you need to remember. That these areas begin to start formulating and connecting and communicating with each other so that you can, 1, make a decision, 2, have empathy, 3, have survival, and 4, recognize the ability to have gratitude, and even they get activated when you do meditation, prayer, and mindfulness therapy. You understand? Yeah. And when they get activated like that, it causes a reduction in pain, a reduction in anxiety, and the ability to carry forth your divine energy and your divine strength. Are you with me now?
Yes.
I want to make sure that I don't want to make the science so that it doesn't make sense, but you can't have these emotions and feelings and expressions of divinity without knowing what's happening in your brain, in your body.
Come on.
You know, and so you got to walk away from here informed. It ain't just what you think, it's also what you're thinking and feeling, and it's the combination I want to strengthen between human strength and divine strength. Yes. Both constitute spiritual strength. Yes. And so research shows that when this connection is weak, due to these adverse events, due to trauma, due to all these kinds of vicissitudes of life, and heaven help us for over 400 years, that it takes a lot more energy. But the more you practice and visualize, to see yourself at the goal, when you ask God for the help, when you say, help me, then visualize what it is you want God, the Creator, to help you with.
That's right.
Now, not just get that person because you want to date them. Not just get that person because you want to take their money. Don't be asking that wrong kind of stuff. Because the brain has a way of knowing what that is. And will screw you around no matter what. And so, but when you do that and you begin to visualize it over time, guess what happens? Your brain's ability to switch, to make that volatile switch is what we call it. That volatile switch to empower yourself to acquire that which you are desiring becomes easier. Amen. So practice makes perfect. And perfect practice makes perfect. Yes. And so what am I saying? I'm saying that every day, at least for 15 minutes, meditate, pray, and allow yourself to visualize the power within yourself, the divine energy, the divine healing that the Creator has given you, and to help you, assist you in overcoming these obstacles. Because we have it within us. The Creator made it so that we are the experts. We just don't practice our expertise. And because we don't practice our expertise, it lies dormant. And what is not like a muscle? If you don't exercise the muscle, it gets flaccid, right? Yes. It gets weak. Yes. And so these weak connections, these connections in this ACC portion of your brain, you know, and the SMA portions of your brain become flaccid. They become not workable. They become weak, disorganized, disjointed. And so therefore you can't call on them. Yes. But what happens when you become at that last hopeless stage and you give your hands up and you say, oh God, just help me. What you've done at that point is often release your anxiety. Yes. You see what I'm saying? Yes. Oftentimes when you give it to God, you end up releasing your anxiety. And so it's that process of releasing that anxiety that then takes you back to that ability that you already had divinely to make those decisions. Are you with me now? Is it making any sense? Is it coming full circle now? Amen. Because what happens is that it's at that moment when we are at our last leg that we just don't fight it anymore. We stop being conditioned by our environment, and we just say, give it to God. But when you give it to God, you're giving it to your divine self. But you don't get it, because Western has taught you that you are created in sin, not in divinity. Are you with me now?
Yes.
I just want to make sure we all, on the same page here, because we have the ability to motivate ourselves. But when those connections are weak, you lack motivation. And we know this because of the experiments that were done with people who have had traumatized brains. Now, I'm not talking about societal trauma. I'm talking about physical trauma, like a stroke or Alzheimer's or something of that nature. And we see how much more energy. So it takes 3 times as much energy to get to a place where you can make that motivational change when you are disconnected. And when you've had all these traumatic experiences, like living in America if you're black, it requires extra effort. And what it requires is you getting into the practice of meditation and prayer, getting into the practice of seeing yourself, letting the creative energy inside you, let the divine spirit inside you work with you and not work against you. And so in that dynamic, you stop getting stuck. You've heard me say here before that when people are traumatized, the frontal lobe doesn't work. They get neural cement. And that's what I meant when I was talking about the neural cement. You get stuck in a place where you can't move from the limbic system into the frontal lobe to create and motivate to achieve a goal.
Yes.
Got me?
Got you.
And so the connections have to be re-strengthened.
Yes.
It's not that they're permanently gone, not unless you've had a stroke or brain damage. Now some folk are sociopathic, and they don't even want to do that, but I'm talking about the rest of y'all. Us. I'm talking about folk like on the hill. But so you want to practice every day. Don't just mindlessly pray. You know, ask the Creator for the energy and the strength to manifest the goodness and divinity within yourself. Wow. And whatever that takes, you don't never pray directly for money. Let me make that clear. Right. In African traditional systems, if you pray for money, you shorten your life by 7 years. Wow. So our ancestors, they too for all. You pray for the object. You pray for the thing that the money will accomplish for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not for the money itself, because then money becomes the object and not the divinity.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
Y'all with me?
Oh, yeah.
I just want to make sure we're on the same page up in this camp. Okay? And so you want to manifest the divinity within yourself that's already been created by your relationship to your divine self. Mm-hmm. And so if you have had experience of physical, mental, emotional, and sexual trauma, then you understand that it may take you a minute longer, but it's not impossible.
Yeah. That's right.
That's what I want to make clear. It's not impossible. Mm-hmm. It just means you got to work at it harder. You got to practice. If you're an athlete, you practice to become perfect. If you are an accountant, you practice. If you're a lawyer, you have to have cases. If you're a surgeon, you have to have so many cases that you become an expert. You got to become an expert on yourself.
Yeah.
On your divine self.
Yeah.
You practice over and over, seeing the goal, manifesting your strength, and understanding that you have that divinity within you, and that it's you, by virtue of sometimes conscious, sometimes unconscious choices, that have elected to not exercise that divine power. And you have to ask God for the strength, or ask your creative self for the strength. So when you do that, as Rosa Parks said, what did she say? She learned that when you change your mind, the anxiety and the fear go away, right? Isn't that what I just said? Right. So how do you lower the anxiety? How do you stop being the drama king or queen? Because you think you're getting benefits from it, but you're not. People are placating you to get rid of you.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Wow.
Well, because you think, well, this and this, and if you've got a friend or a relative that the only time they speak to you is when they want something, you know where to put them.
That's right.
Get into the curve.
File 13.
Yes.
And minimize your time with them. Exactly. Because they are toxic.
That's right.
And you have to eliminate toxicity. Yes. People, places, and things.
That's right.
Because the energy that it takes, it beats you down. And what did I just tell you? Then that takes more energy for you to be able to elevate your higher self, your ACC, right? And your SMA, y'all got that. to be able to accomplish your goal. So you have to minimize the time you spend with them and stop feeling guilty.
Come on.
Because the thing about these kind of people, they are masters at making you feel guilty.
Well,
And they know which buttons to push and how often and how hard. And they push them, especially when they want something. So when you're feeling apathetic and you're feeling, as though at the end of the road, it's okay to say, God, give me strength. But at the same time, give me the strength to manifest whatever it is that is within my divine power that you want me to have.
Yes.
Because some of y'all want stuff that ain't right. And that same power can be used, to do wrong as it can be, because you have the ability. Unfortunately, what we know is that we don't see it manifested in the way that we could. If we did, we wouldn't be in this condition. I'm talking about black people. We wouldn't be in this condition. We would be able to work together and understand that I'm going to manifest good and you're going to manifest good. My neurobiology is going to light up in the places where I need it to light up in my frontal lobe, and we're going to rock and roll up on this thing.
Yes.
Y'all with me?
Yes.
And so I'm suggesting that you take a minute every day, 15, rather, to meditate and reflect, and not just pray for to hear yourself pray. Not just pray for the words because you sound good and you're articulate and you're well informed and well educated and all of that good stuff. Pray for the Creator to come inside you and enhance and manifest the divinity that they already put in you.
okay.
So that you can then be greater and superhuman and augmented. Be an augmented human that divinely inspires not only others but yourself to change the world and to switch from negativity to one of positivity. So that even under these traumatic circumstances, you can rise above that, because you know that inside of you is always something greater to survive.
That's right. Yes.
And these people cannot create anything that will destroy you, because we ain't dead yet.
That's right. Yes.
We are our ancestors. We're not dead yet. And so you can overturn the mind, and you can overturn the negativity by enhancing, remember what I said, the connectivity in the front portion and the premotor cortex of your brain of the ACC and the SFS. Y'all got it now. Y'all be bad when y'all run out of here tomorrow. And so what I'm saying is that it's innate. The Creator gave it to us.
Yes.
We must, first of all, you can't use it if you don't know it exists. Okay. Now now that you know it exists, you have no excuse.
Right.
And so the excuse is that I don't have it. That I must manifest my divinity. I must manifest my divine strength. I must visualize every day the place that I need to be and where my mind needs to take me so I can manifest the divine strength. And remember what I said. Remember, that what I said that a mind attacked and conquered is easily led away from the path of its own soul. So you must understand that to manifest the path of your own soul, you do this because it is inherent upon your divinity. It's inherent for you to train this to your children for the next generation so we can stop the madness. And I want to just take a minute. I have some excerpts out there in the back I want you all to pick up. This is a book that I have coming out in May. It's called Smart Sisters and Brothers Ain't Finishing Last. De-stress your life and free your mind in 16 achievable steps. And every step is a chapter. And I just want to read the first one, because it tells what we said today. Quiet your mind and accept the divinity of yourself. Cultivate your spiritual growth internally and externally. Have a moral compass. And one of the other chapters is to say no without feeling guilty. That's important. That's important. So part of what we're going to do is I want you can get this. You can order the book later, and I do want you to get it because everybody that orders the book, I will put in a drawing for an hour, 2-hour consultation with me to help you discover your divine strength. Because that's my ministry.
Okay.
And so that your mind will not attack itself and will not be conquered and will not be led from the path of eternity. Thank you.